The New York Islanders have been graded by most experts to have had the best draft in the NHL. We'll explain the impact the picks will make on the franchise, plus a sneak peek ahead at free agency. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everybody who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today and talk a little Islanders hockey. We've got a very busy show. The draft is now behind us. Most experts graded the Islanders as having the best draft in the league. We'll break down the picks and the impact. Plus, one player is not going anywhere and another one may be staying and signing very soon. We'll talk about all of that and a couple of Bridgeport-oriented moves as well on today's busy show. We've got to start with the draft. And look, I'm going to break down some of the players individually over the next few shows, the next few weeks even, because there is so much to talk about. And again, keep in mind, this is the NHL. And I would say with the possible exception of Matthew Schaefer, it is unlikely any of these players will be in a New York Islanders uniform come October when the season gets underway. But the New York Islanders prospect pool has been near the bottom of the league or even at the bottom of the league for several years now. That's what happens when you trade away 4 straight first-round picks. Well, Matthew Darche in one day or 2 days, Friday and Saturday, ends up adding 3 first-round picks and some very good picks in day 2 and replenishes to a large extent the Islanders farm club. So 2 years ago, the Islanders prospect pool dead last in the league, according to The Athletic. Last year, with the addition of Cole Yzerman, moving up to 25th, I would have to say that the Islanders prospect pool will probably get into the mid to even low teens this year, and maybe even better depending on what happens between now and the start of the season. But the one thing I wanted to touch on, and I will get down again to all the specific players and talk a little bit more about them on future episodes. But the one thing that this group had in common, and I really liked it when you looked at, look, you're not going to, it was either Schaefer or Misa with the first overall pick, okay? But every other player that the Islanders drafted and even the player that they acquired in the Noah Dobson trade, in addition to the 2 first-round picks in Emil Heineman, they all had one thing in common, and that was this. They are difficult to play against. There were leadership abilities. There was grit. There was that hunger for the puck, that desire to be physical and to forecheck or back check and to get possession of the puck. There were leadership qualities. But look, we have been talking on this show for the better part of, this entire past season. And it has been one of those things that we've been saying, hey, This team needs to be more difficult to play against. And boy, did we get that. You look at the breakdown, for example, of Victor Eklund from the 16th overall pick. His best attribute, according to scouts, his compete level. Same thing with Kashawn Aitchison. Other things were either NHL average or maybe slightly above. But realistically, again, the compete level is the highest thing that he has. Daniil Prokhorov, second round pick, the Russian, high-end compete level. This seems to be a thread. Tomasz Politin, same thing, high-end compete level. That is what you want to see out of all of these players. And it is a trait that the New York Islanders are going to want to add to this organization under Matthew Darche. And again, it takes time. These players, some of them will never make the NHL, and if they do, they may not be with the Islanders. But the ones that do, can make a big impact on this team and make them more difficult to play against. And that is something this team needed so badly. How many people over the course of the last year were talking about the country club atmosphere and all that? How this team needs to be tougher to play against. Well, now we're in the process of remaking this team. And it'll take time, but I think Matthew Darche has the right idea. And again, every grade that I've seen has been A or A+ for the New York Islanders. And I haven't seen any expert list the Islanders as anything other than first overall best draft. Now, having 3 first-round picks certainly helps. And obviously, the way that Darche went about this and the players that he picked definitely helped. He got great value overall for this team. I mean, again, this is only one expert's opinion, but Schaefer, first overall pick. Eklund, ranked 8th, picked 16th. Aitchison, ranked 11th, got him with the 17th pick. Prokhorov in the second round, ranked 30th, got him with the 42nd pick. All of these players, the Islanders got good value with one, maybe or two exceptions in the draft. So it's I think, a very good haul for the New York Islanders. And look, this is the NHL. This is not the NBA. This is not the NFL. None of these players, with the possible exception of Matthew Schaefer, will have an immediate impact. And most of them won't even play in Bridgeport this year. But the optimism that this franchise has lacked for the last 3 or so years, where it just, you saw the Islanders are in the muddy middle. They're getting older. They're stuck with bad contracts and with no trade clauses and players who are overpaid. All of these factors, all of a sudden, that feeling of being stuck has been lifted. And they even added cap space in the Noah Dobson deal that they need so badly. So there is a little bit of room, and they could certainly free up some more, but there's a little bit of room for free agency. I'm not saying the Islanders are necessarily going all in on free agency this summer, but if you want to add a player who can maybe add some goal scoring to the middle six, or you want to add that right shot defenseman that you need to replace Noah Dobson. All of these things are now possible because you've got cap space, and that gives you some flexibility. So it is refreshing to see the way Matthew Darche is handling things, and it's too early to seriously know how this is all going to work out. The A+ grade that you saw from The Athletic and from ESPN and so many other outlets is based on where these players are ranked now. But in 5 years, how will it play out? In 10 years, how will it play out? Minimum of 5 years to know what kind of an impact an NHL draft has. But I am happy as of today with where the Islanders stand. And most experts who have been looking at this agree with me that the Islanders hit it out of the park in Matthew Darche's first draft. So we go on from here, and hey, more good news. Prospects camp starts this week. So the Islanders will actually have Cole Yzerman and Danny Nelson and any other players who are playing college hockey at prospects camp. The new draft picks at prospects camp. Guys who are playing in Europe at prospects camp, which wasn't happening under Lou Lamoriello. More reasons for optimism for the Islanders organization. Got to take it one step at a time. It's a process to get out of the muddy middle, but we're taking steps in the right direction, and that is fantastic. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. Rumors about JG Pageau, maybe you could quash them now. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Alexander Romanov's situation and a few more additions that Matthew Darche made on the weekend. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even makes regular season games feel like much-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes me feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started. So, as far as JG Pageau is concerned, there were trade rumors about Pageau leading up to the draft. There were even some murmurings at the draft. But you know what? As of right now, Matthew Darche indicating he does not anticipate dealing JG Pageau, according to a report by Michael Russo at The Athletic. Now, Pageau is 32. He's entering the final year of his deal. And look, there is a shortage of quality centers out there, and the Islanders, especially if Matthew Barzal moves back to his natural center position, have a surplus. You've got 6 guys on this roster right now who can play center. Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, you've got JG Pageau, you've got Casey Cizikas, you've got Calum Ritchie, and then, of course, you've got Kyle McLean. So there's 6 centers on this roster who have NHL experience. And teams have reportedly inquired about Pageau, whether it's the Vegas Golden Knights. We talked every dayers will remember last week about the Boston Bruins. The Edmonton Oilers have apparently reached out. But as of now, Darche is saying that Pageau is not for sale. Now, two things to keep in mind when it comes to what Darche is saying. Number one, it could be a little deceptive. He could be saying this to try to get teams to up their offers as to what they will give the Islanders in exchange for Pageau. Number two, just because he may not be on the move now before free agency starts, I think the odds are stronger that the Islanders try to move Pageau at the trade deadline. And I guess you have to sort of take into consideration this. What is the best return? When do you get the best return for JG Pageau? And I'll add Anders Lee, who is also in the final year of his contract and is a guy in his, now mid-30s with a high cap hit. Now, if he does re-sign, it'll be for less than the $7 million AAV that he's getting. But again, guys like Lee, guys like Pageau, if you're looking to get younger, faster, and more skilled, you're trying to move on from these guys. Or if you sign them, it's a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal at a very low cap hit. So just because Darche is saying now he's not trading Pageau this offseason doesn't mean it's not going to happen before the trade deadline or at the trade deadline come February and March of next year. So I kind of think with the shortage of centers available right now, it may make sense to trade JG Pageau. I have heard that teams have offered a first-round pick for him. If I can get a first-round pick in the 2026 draft, which again is deeper and better than this year's draft was supposed to be, I would do that. And if it means moving Barzy back to center, I have or Casey Zizekas back to center, I have no problem with that because Richie is going to fill in one place. And again, the way I see it, and the Islanders can deny it from now until hell freezes over, but it's not about this year for the New York Islanders. This is a transition year. We have moved on from Lou Lamoriello. Matthew Darche needs time in order to get the team that he wants to put on the ice. And we'll see who that includes and who it doesn't. But changes have started and more changes are on the way for this organization. We've already seen Darche make this team's prospect pool, filling it with players who are going to be higher compete level, more difficult to play against, leadership type qualities. That's one step. He moved on from the inconsistent and expensive Noah Dobson, freed up some cap space. That's another step. I don't necessarily expect the Islanders to be big players in free agency this year. In fact, as everydayers are aware, the Islanders have never signed a big ticket elite free agent in the history of the franchise. I don't think that changes this summer, but maybe next summer there is a chance. And if the Islanders organization continues to show potential prospects that, hey, we can do this, we're a team on the rise, we have a great group of prospects and picks, and we have more coming, I think you can start to attract some free agents down the line. The other move that I really, really want to see, and we still don't know, but Isaac Howard is still out there. Darche was in the Lightning organization when they drafted him, and if they could pull off a trade to get Howard here, you add another player who is either NHL ready now or very close to it. You hope that Darche's connections with the Lightning organization could be helpful in getting Howard to Long Island. And again, the prospect pool, the number of players who can help this organization, it just gets better and grows and grows. So for now, JG Pageau not going anywhere. Or at least that's what Matthew Darche is saying. I'm okay with that, but I'm also okay if you get an offer that's really, really good with moving him, because I don't think this year the Islanders, could they contend for a playoff spot? Maybe. But are they legitimate Stanley Cup contenders as of right now? No. And that's all right, because sometimes in the world of sports and in the NHL, and really in any league with a salary cap, sometimes you got to take one step back to take two steps forward. And hopefully that's what the Islanders organization is going to do. And the more picks and prospects and players that you can add to the mix, the faster that retool or rebuild or whatever you want to call it can get accomplished, and the Islanders can start competing again for the playoffs and hopefully eventually to be viewed as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And that's something that we haven't seen in far too long here on Long Island. Alexander Romanov is an RFA. There's been rumors about what's happening with him. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. And just FYI, it's an offensive-minded defenseman who was with the Islanders in the very late 80s and very early 90s. Let's see if you can guess who that is. But we'll talk about the Romanov situation and its potential impact on the Islanders, plus a couple of signings coming up next. So Alexander Romanov, RFA, everydayers will recall last week I said that I expected one of either Romanov or Dobson to be traded and the other one to be signed. Well, guess what? They traded Noah Dobson, and now the rumor is that the Islanders are close to an extension with Alexander Romanov. Now, Matthew Darche told the New York Post, we have some clarity on one of the big pieces and hopefully get some clarity on a couple of others soon. And then Elliot Friedman reported that an extension with Alexander Romanov is imminent. Now, what is it going to cost the New York Islanders? My estimate is it's probably in the $5 to $5.5 million range. Whether we go for 5 years, 6 years, the 7 or the full 8, that remains to be seen. But right now, you have a 25-year-old defenseman who had 20 points, gave you, 20 plus minutes a game, probably somewhere in that $5 to $6 million range, depending on the term. Now, he has 2 years left as an RFA, and then you go to his eligibility to be a UFA. I have to say that, it makes sense, and I'm more comfortable giving $5 million a year to Alexander Romanov than I am in giving, $10 million in order to sign Noah Dobson. And look, I could be proven wrong on that, but I think that's where we are. And I think it makes more sense because I just don't see the consistency in Dobson. I wish him well. I like the kid. I wish him well in Montreal, but I think signing him to a long-term deal at $9.5, $10 million a year would have been a mistake. Now, the Islanders did make a couple of minor moves over the weekend. And look, these are the kind of moves that aren't going to make headlines, but they are going to help the organization. So the Islanders re-sign Liam Foudy and Julien Gauthier to 1 year, two-way contracts. So they'll get more money if they play in the NHL, less money, obviously, a different rate if they're in the AHL. Gauthier, 27, played one game for the Islanders before being sent down to Bridgeport. He's a fast skater, so he'll fit in with Patrick Roy's system if need be. Foudy, also a quick skater. He had 20 goals and 45 points in Bridgeport. Had 2 NHL games with the Islanders. So again, it's two moves that make sense, but are not earth-shattering to the big club. But you know what? Again, would it surprise me at all that Foudy or Gauthier end up playing a couple of games with the big club this year? No. And you need veteran presence like a Gauthier or a Foudy if you want to win in the AHL. And again, winning a championship in the AHL, not priority one. But let's get the Bridgeport Islanders to respectability. And hopefully guys like that can help mentor some of the younger players, the picks, the prospects, the guys on their way up, and we can go from there. But, solid, if not spectacular moves by Matthew Darche to keep those two veterans on the island or in Bridgeport, however you look at it. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 65th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Doug Crossman, the Peterborough, Ontario native, a 6th-round pick of the Blackhawks in 1979, made his NHL debut with Chicago for the 80-81 season, played for the Flyers and then briefly the Kings before joining the Islanders in the 89-90 season. Spent all of 89-90 and a little bit of 90-91 with the Isles, then got dealt to the Hartford Whalers, played for the Red Wings, Lightning, and Blues before hanging up his skates for good after the 95-96 campaign. Doug Crossman, 105 goals and 464 points in 914 NHL games, 12 goals, 51 points in 97 playoff games. The thing about Crossman, he really was good with the puck, good on the power play, and he could help out offensively. Defense, not always his forte, but one of his better games as an Islander, March 10th, 1990, Islanders hosting the Bruins at the old barn, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Andy Moog, the goalie for Boston, Mark Fitzpatrick in between the pipes for the Islanders. Islanders broke out to a 2-0 lead in the first period on a pair of power play goals, one by Brent Sutter, one by Randy Wood, but Doug Crossman had the primary assist on both. But the Bruins came back, got 3 goals in the second period, Brian Propp, Cam Neely, and John Carter. So it went to the third, Islanders down by a goal, and our Islanders birthday of the day, Doug Crossman ties it midway through the third. Brent Sutter and Derek Laxdal with the assist. Game ends in a 3-3 tie. Mark Fitzpatrick, 24 saves. But for our Islanders birthday of the day, Doug Crossman, he had a goal. He had 2 assists. That's a 3-point game. He was a +1, and he had 3 shots on goal. So Doug Crossman, an offensive-minded defenseman, he is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off-season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. You can find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VS, NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders throughout this important off season. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. Free agency starts tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about what to expect from the Islanders, if anything, any other possible moves, rumors, signings. We'll bring you up to date on that on tomorrow's show. We'll also start to look individually at some of these draft picks and what they bring to the table. There's a lot to unpack, and we will do it in future episodes here. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.